While the world was suffering from COVID-19, hundreds of millions of women were facing a different type of pandemic, gender-based violence. During the lockdowns, countries around the world reported significant increases in gender-based violence, with up to 33% more incidents of domestic violence against women. While things got worse during the pandemic, gender-based violence has been an ongoing problem. The UN reports 35% of women have suffered from physical or sexual violence at least once. 38% of all murders of women are perpetrated by an intimate partner, and in the last year alone, 16% of young women between 15 and 24 were victims of violence. While most people think about gender-based violence, they associate it with sexual or physical violence. However, gender-based violence extends beyond this narrow definition to include verbal, psychological, emotional, and socioeconomic violence. Violence is always about power and control, and perpetrators of gender-based violence against women are most often men who feel superior and want to maintain power and control in their homes and societies. The effects of gender-based violence on victims are life-altering. Harm can include physical injury, mental health problems like anxiety, depression, PTSD, and even suicide, permanent disability, social stigma, including victim blaming, financial instability, and even death. While women are the primary group affected by gender-based violence, others also suffer. Children and family members are impacted when a mother, sister, or daughter is the victim of gender-based violence. Additionally, gender-based violence can include members of the LGBTQ+ community based on their perceived or actual gender identification or sexual orientation. When choosing my social justice issue, I spent time considering many different topics. However, given my family and personal history with gender-based violence, this topic was the one closest to my heart. One psychological theory related to gender-based violence against women is the social learning theory. Made famous by Albert Bandura's Bobo doll experiment, social learning theory proposes that children learn through observation, imitation, and modeling. This theory would suggest that adults who had violence modeled for them as children would be most likely to perpetrate or be victims of gender-based violence as adults. Another theory that can help describe, explain, predict, and control gender-based violence against women is the power control theory. This theory suggests that violence against women occurs because of power dynamics that elevate men above women in relationships and in society in general. The theory explains that violence occurs to maintain power and control in the relationship rather than simply as an emotional reaction. Power and control theory can predict gender-based violence will be higher whenever patriarchal values are adhered to. It can help control gender-based violence by working within cultures to educate and raise awareness of the consequences of patriarchal beliefs. Finally, feminist theory contends that women experience injustice in societies where they experience inequality. When used in connection with gender-based violence, feminist theory explains that inequality leads to gender-based violence and that the solution is to restructure patriarchal systems so that men and women are equal, thus reducing or eliminating power imbalances that result in violence against women. There are many reasons for the worldwide prevalence of gender-based violence against women. Sexist attitudes, prejudices, and stereotypes permeate our religious and historical traditions. Women experience millennia-old political and economic inequalities that leave them without resources they need to protect themselves. And because so many children are exposed to gender-based violence, cycles are repeated. Kofi Annan said, "Violence against women is perhaps the most shameful human rights violation, and it is perhaps the most pervasive. It knows no boundaries or geography, culture, or wealth. As long as it continues, we cannot claim to be making real progress toward equality, development, and peace." There is so much injustice in the world, and change can seem impossible. However, when we all do our part to educate ourselves, develop empathy for one another, and work hard to implement change that is within our control, we can make a difference and begin to change the world for the better. Right now, at least 1 in 3 women will experience violence in her lifetime. Through diligent study and implementation of psychological research, those numbers can be reduced and women can be empowered to live in peace and equality.